what the heck is Plato even, or Timaeus technically, but I'll say Plato even talking about here, right? Well, let's just take a step back. One thing that I'll say is that Plato does not use the word eternity the same way that we tend to use it, I think, in English. A lot of times when we say eternity, we almost make it as equivalent to forever. Like you might have thought, this class is taking an eternity. Right? And eternity, we're going to see, is actually crucially different from that. We're going to see that for Plato, eternity is not quite the same thing as forever. It makes sense why someone would think of the two as related, but in particular, we're going to see that eternity is not that, right? And that when Plato uses the word time and uses the word eternity, he almost means like things that are the extreme opposites of one another, contraries of one another, right? So our goal is going to be to essentially set up the distinction between what time and eternity are. We're going to essentially be creating a list of differences between time and eternity. So let's read together. The first important difference is he thinks about time as something that's moving according to number, right? Whereas eternity remains in unity, right? Well, okay. So if time is moving according to number, there's a kind of we're talking about a lot of something. But unity is how many? Unity is one. Eternity is connecting to one, to unity, while time is connecting to manyness, number, right? And so if you think about even number itself, numbers are kind of funny things. Like, when do you notice numbers? Numbers themselves only really come into existence when you think of and you notice the manyness of something, when you're paying attention to the fact that there is more than one, right? However, if you're looking at like a pair of pants where there's two legs, you don't necessarily think of the two legs. You just think of it as a unity, as a single pair of pants. Even like a pair of shoes, you might think of as a single unity unless one was missing. And then you pay attention to the fact that there was two. So number comes up as something that only exists when you have manyness, when you have multiplicities. But eternity is like a unity where there is no numbering at all. It's just oneness. Let's read some more. So now what do we think of when we think of was and will be? Was and will be are connected to past and future. So essentially we see here that according to this account, in eternity, there's no past and there's no future. Right? Now that's a little bit different than forever. Because if you think about this class is taking forever, right? There was a past and there is a future. But notice here, we're saying that there is no past and there is no future for eternity. Okay. Well, let's continue. There's some other weirdness, right? When Plato talks about eternity, when Timaeus here is talking about eternity, and I'm going to interpret that as Plato himself, he says that in eternity there only is appropriately said of it, right? When we see eternity, in eternity we have this realm of just being, right? Just being itself. Where in time, we'll notice Plato uses this term becoming, right? That there's some kind of becoming there. There's always some coming to be, right? And then he ends up, I like this cute thing, but I don't suppose it's a good time right now to be too meticulous about these matters. He's not going to really like dig into it in great detail, right? But we'll dig more into this, right? When we talk about time and eternity, then we're ultimately thinking about this tension, right? We're thinking about, we've got the past, we've got the future, and then let's dig into the now. Let's analyze the now, because the now is going to show us how time is an image of eternity. Okay, so you could think of the now as kind of like an asymptote, right? This asymptotic separation between what was and what will be. However, the way things exist right now, they exist in a way that's constantly ready to change, constantly like never staying the same. It's like a kind of the things exist, but they exist to just become something else, to just exist and change into something else. And so this is this crucial difference between when we think about the now of time, which is the separation between the past and the future, and the is of eternity. Both of them talk about existence when things exist, but the way something exists in eternity is completely different from the way it exists in time. Because in eternity, there is no was, there is no will be, there is no change, right? So eternity, the eternal is has to be fundamentally durationless. It has no amount. It's not like it's just an instant. It has no length at all. It's not has no length because it's so infinitely small. Has no length because it's not just because it's so infinitely big, but because there's no way of even thinking, for Plato's mind, between put caps on it, because things always remain the way there are. Things just exist. There is no before and after. There is no change. There's just pure existence, right? And so when we saw that word being before, fundamentally that's what eternity is. It's a kind of unchanging being, right? And so when we talk now about how time, right? We said that time is a moving image of eternity, right? How is time an image of it? How time is an image of eternity? Because the way things exist in time is fleeting and temporary, while the not changingness of eternity is eternal, has no beginning, has no end. It's not even just forever that it all goes forever into the past and the future. There is no past and future. There only is.